everybody. This is Deanna Minnick. Welcome to this whole detox experience that we're having. Today, our guest is Marci Shimoff. Marci is a #1 New York Times bestselling author. She's a celebrated transformational leader, and she's an expert on happiness, success, and unconditional love. I'm sure that you know her name and you know her books, such as Love for No Reason and Happy for No Reason. And she's also the woman's face of the biggest self-help book phenomenon in history as co-author of the Chicken Soup for the Woman's Soul series. Fabulous series. Her total book sales of more than 15 million copies worldwide in 33 languages, Marci is one of the best-selling female nonfiction authors of all time. And you might have also seen her as a teacher in the film and the book sensation, The Secret. Marci is dedicated to helping people live more empowered and joy-filled lives. And therefore, you can see why we would want her as part of the Detox Summit and the Detox Challenge, because she brings into this whole experience the idea of how do we get more joy? How do we start looking at our emotions, our mind, our lives, and start living from a place of inner contentment? So welcome, Marci, to the Detox Summit.
Thank you, Deanna. I am so delighted to be here. This is actually a topic that I have a passion about. I have spent a lot of my life doing various kinds of detoxes, mental, physical, spiritual, and it's really been a huge boon in my life. And so I'm so grateful to you for bringing this out to the world.
Well, and we're so grateful to you for being a part of this and sharing your love, your knowledge, your insight. You know, you are, I see you as part of this expert panel of all of these power women that I've been talking with, JJ Virgin, Kelly Brogan, Lise Alschuler, you know, a number of different women here that, like you, so well accomplished getting your message out there in the world. And what I really find fascinating is that it seems that everybody comes from a very a personal place. You know, their journey was set afoot somehow. So we're very curious to hear about your journey and how you've come to this place at this time in your life.
Well, there is an old saying that we teach what we most want to learn. And this is why I am teaching happiness is I was not born happy. I came out of the womb with existential angst. I had a really great family, but I had just this heaviness around me, kind of a dark cloud around me that I felt all growing up, all through my teen years. And I did what I think many people in our society have been taught to do, and that is I set specific goals for myself. This was in my early 20s. And I thought once I reach those goals, then I'll be happy.
Right.
It's the myth that we live in, the myth of I'll be happier when. And I'll just share with you my 5 goals that I'd set when I was in my early 20s. I wanted to have a great career helping people. I wanted wonderful friends. I wanted a great life partner or husband, a comfortable home, and the equivalent of Halle Berry's body.
And that's not too much to ask.
I got 4 out of the 5. I don't have Halle Berry's body, but I do have a healthy body for which I'm very grateful. And I will tell you that I had a major turning point moment in 1998. It was June of 1998, and all those things on my list really had been accomplished, except for the Halle Berry body. And this particular day, I had 3 books at the same time in the top 5 on the New York Times bestseller list. I had just finished giving a speech to 8,000 people, and I had signed 5,432 books.
Oh, my word.
My client had a massage therapist on hand to massage my hand every half hour so I didn't get carpal tunnel. At the end of autographing that last book, I felt like an author rock star. But I went up to my hotel room, which was the penthouse suite that my client had gotten for me, and I plopped onto the bed and I burst into tears. And I burst into tears because I realized that I had everything that I thought I needed in life to be happy, and I still wasn't. And that's when I decided to dedicate my life to finding out what would make me happy, what would make you happy, what would make anybody happy. And Deanna, the news is good. The news is that science has cracked the happiness code. We now know what it takes for people to be happier. And that's what I've been teaching. I've applied the things in my own life, and I'd say I went from a D plus in happiness to an A minus. I'm still in process, but it really works. And I've now taught this to thousands and thousands of people, tens of thousands of people, and it works universally. And I know that you like getting very practical. So I know that our time together, I want to share at least 3 practical things that everybody today can use immediately in your life to become happier.
That's excellent. We definitely want practical. But before we get to practical, I still want to have an understanding of what you just said, which was very profound. This idea that the science has cracked the nut of happiness. Is there really science on what it takes for people to be happy? And is it the same for everybody?
This is a great question. So there is a field called positive psychology, the field of positive psychology, and they have found out some amazing things about happiness. And I just, I'm thrilled that there are researchers out there studying this. And let me just share with you the one piece of research that I think is most important that everybody should know. And that is that we all have a happiness set point.
Mm.
It's like a thermostat setting. So no matter what happens to us, whether it's good or bad, we will return generally to our thermostat setting, our happiness set point. So for example, people who win the lottery, and a lot of people think, well, oh, if I won the lottery, boy, that's all I need to be happy. Well, if you won the lottery, you would be happier for a few months.
Hmm.
But within about a year, you would return to your original happiness set point. And shockingly, the same is true of people who have tragedies. Horrible things happen. Within about a year, we've returned to our original happiness set point. So the set point is the king and the key to it all. And here's how the set point is determined. It's 50% genetic. We're born with that. It's 10%, and only 10% are circumstances. Very small piece of the pie, and yet that's what everybody's trying to change and control and fix and maneuver in order to be happy, but it's such a small piece of the whole puzzle.
Interesting.
The other 40% is our habits. And that's what we can really change to raise our happiness level. And I'm going to take this a little step further and say that there are progressive scientists in the field of epigenetics, like Dr. Bruce Lipton, who wrote The Biology of Belief. And they say that even that 50% that's our genes, that can be changed when we change our habits. So that means that up to 90% of our happiness can be changed by changing these habits. I've discovered that there are 21 core happiness habits that anyone can practice to raise their happiness set point. And some of them have to do with how we take care of our bodies. And I'm sure there are a lot of the things that you've talked about in the Detox Summit about the body. Some of them have to do with our mind. Some of them have to do with our emotions. Some of them have to do with our environment. Some of them have to do with our soul or spirit. And some of them have to do with how we live our purpose or passion in life. So it's a very holistic approach to happiness. And I've found it just to be so effective. So I'll share with you some tips from a few of the different categories, if that's okay.
That would be great. So I just want to recap that quickly because that's, again, this is one of those statistics that just kind of reels you back a little bit. So 90% of our happiness is to some degree self-created. We can change our habits, which can then change our genes.
Exactly.
90%. Okay, so take us through.
And it's beyond just saying choose to be happy. That's the place you have to start, is by recognizing that you have the responsibility is in your hands.
Yeah.
But it's not just a mental process. It's mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, environmental, relationships. It's all of it.
Everything. Okay, so where do we start? I mean, because it seems like that's a huge web to dive into. So how do we inch in?
It is. And what in our short period of time, we can just go through a few of these. What I generally tell people to do is I actually have a happiness assessment, a happy for no reason assessment that's available for free. And I'll give people the website at the end of this. And you can see where you are the weakest. And that's where I tell people to start. In these 21 areas, you see where your Achilles heel is, and you'll get the greatest result when you start where you are the weakest. But I will share with you what I think are some of the most universal tools for people. And let's start with one that is an experiential process that I'm going to lead you through that has to do with the difference between living in the stress response, where most of us spend most of our time. And we know what it means to live in the stress response. We're stuck in traffic, we're late for a meeting, or we're, having a challenge with a friend or a coworker and it's frustrating, and we spend so much of our time stressed out.
Mm-hmm.
And that has its own physiology. It's got its own brain activity. It's got its own heart rhythms. Then there's this other sort of the opposite of the stress response. It's called the love response. And it's actually a physiological state. It's a term that was coined by Dr. Eva Selhub of Harvard. And it's got its own brain activity and heart rhythms and biochemistry. And I'm going to show you right now a practice that can move you in just a few minutes from the stress response into the love response. And I learned this from a group called the Institute of Heart Math.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
They're the world's leading researchers on the heart and how it affects our happiness and our health. And they've actually found that when you're spending 5 minutes in frustration or stress or anger, it can suppress your immune system for up to 6 hours. But when you spend 5 minutes in love and compassion, it can strengthen your immune system for up to 6 hours. So,
well, we definitely know which direction we want to go, right?
We do. So I'm going to share with you this very simple, it's a 2-minute practice. And I'm going to ask that everybody do this along with us because listening to it won't do you any good, but doing it really can. I want you to experience for yourself if you have any shifts that you feel. And Deanna, I'm going to ask you to be my guinea pig if that's okay.
Absolutely. I'm ready.
Great. So at the end of this, I'm going to ask you if you feel any different or how you feel any different. So to do this 3-step process, you can do it with your eyes opened or closed. I find it goes a little deeper with your eyes closed. So if you're able to, I invite you to close your eyes right now. And the first step is to simply place the palm of your hand over your heart. Now that simple act of putting your hand on your heart starts the flow of a chemical called oxytocin. And oxytocin is dubbed the love hormone, because it's what we have more of when we feel bonded and connected with each other. We have more oxytocin. When we're making love, we have lots of oxytocin. Mothers who are breastfeeding have lots of oxytocin. But just putting your hand on your heart right now is helping stimulate the flow of oxytocin in your body. Now, the second step is to imagine that you're breathing in and out through the center of your heart. Just imagine that your breath is coming into your heart and your breath is going out of your heart, as though you're inhaling into your heart and exhaling out of your heart. You can do this at your own pace, but either picture or feel, whichever works best for you, that your breath is coming in and out of the center of your heart. And you may already begin to feel something shifting, either physically or emotionally or even both. And finally, the third step is on each in-breath, imagine that you're breathing in love, ease, and compassion. And on your out breath, you can just exhale normally through as though you're breathing out through your heart. But each in-breath as you breathe into your heart, imagine breathing in love, breathing in ease, and breathing in compassion. And again at your own pace. And each time that you breathe in love, ease, and compassion, you can either remember a time in which you felt that, or you can just say the words internally and it will produce the result. So breathing deeply into your heart, love, ease, and compassion, and exhaling from your heart. And one last time, breathing deeply into your heart, taking in love, taking in ease and compassion. And on your exhale, you can take your hand away and you can slowly open up your eyes if they were closed. And just notice if you feel any shifts in your body, in your emotions. What's different now than 2 minutes ago? Now, that was just about 2 minutes. So, Deanna, I told you you'd be my guinea pig, which you willingly agreed to.
Yeah.
So tell me, what do you notice that's any different now than a few minutes ago?
I would say that I have more opening up in my chest area, just physically. I could
Mm.
feel the places that were sore in my shoulder area. And then all of a sudden, I felt this expansion in my chest. And I also had this, I'm a very visual person. So I had this image right away of me as a little girl on a bike in the summertime, just riding my bike on the street and feeling the sense of freedom, just the wind going through my hair and just feeling this again. The best word I can come up with is feeling expanded.
Hmm. Beautiful. Well, all of everything you've mentioned just now are symptoms of moving into the love response, where you feel expanded. You have these physical sensations of openness. Now, some people may have felt balanced or calm or grounded or just more at ease. Some people have different physical symptoms, like they may feel a warmth in their heart or tingling in their hands and feet. All of these are signs of moving into this love response. And you don't have to have all of them, but just whatever you had is probably, if it has any of those qualities that I've mentioned to it, it means that you are moving into the love response. Now, here's the trick about this. Doing it once is a nice experience, but it's not going to create any lasting change in your life. Here's what I suggest that you do. Every day for the next 2 weeks, do this 2 or 3 times during your day. Once in the morning, once in the afternoon, once in the evening, if you remember in the evening. And what will happen is you will start to habituate the love response. You'll start to make it a habit. And that's where change happens. See, the interesting thing about raising your happiness set point is it isn't hard. It just takes a few minutes of doing things consistently to create this shift. And what I love about this exercise is that you can do it. I do it while I'm standing in line at the grocery store, or while I'm sitting on the telephone talking to somebody, or I'm in a business meeting. You do it, as I said, with your eyes open if you need to. Nobody has to even know that you're doing it. And it really can create a difference.
Marci, I have a question. We've had a number of different experts talking about meditation and even walking us through ways to meditate. How does doing this exercise with the heart compare to something like meditation?
Well, there are many different forms of meditation, and I am a huge, huge believer and supporter of meditation. I've been meditating since I was 16 years old.
Oh my.
And so this is one form of a meditation, I would say. What I like about it is that it's simple. It just takes a couple of minutes to do. And it does create what the Institute of Heart Math calls heart rhythm coherence.
Hmm.
There are other kinds of meditations that do various other things, and that would be a very long conversation to have about, what are the different benefits of all the different kinds of meditation. I do this, and I also do a more formal 20-minute meditation twice a day.
Hmm.
So I think that's a fantastic thing. And actually, as a matter of fact, that leads me into another point that I wanted to share with everybody. People, when we talk about detox, there's so much that we need to detox from. And you're speaking very much, I know, on this summit about the many, all the different aspects of detox. I don't know if this one has come up with people before, though, and that is detoxing from noise and electronics.
Ah.
Our senses are bombarded. Have you done anything with this at all?
Yes, we do have a speaker on this a bit, but I'd like to hear your thoughts. I
Great.
believe we need more. We need more in this
Okay.
way because this is what's really bombarding us, right? All this technology and all the noise.
Yeah, all the noise outside of ourselves. What we are missing is silence.
Hmm.
And so I started a number of years ago going on silent retreats. And I'll just share with you a story. Back in 1994, was working just incredibly hard, and I was having some success. Not the level at which I wanted, but I was certainly having some success. And a friend of mine noticed that I was completely burned out and said to me, "Come with me on a 7-day silent meditation retreat." And my first thought was, "Are you crazy? I'm a speaker. I don't do silence. I haven't been silent for more than 2 hours in my life." And then my second thought was, "I have far too much to do. How could I possibly take off 7 days and go into silence?"
Right.
But she was very convincing. And I went along on this meditation retreat. And I will tell you, the first 2 days were so hard. to be silent was just like my system was set up for constant, constant input, constant adrenaline. We are on an adrenaline rush, most of
Yes.
us.
We sure.
But
Yes.
it's settled. I finally settled down. And on the fourth day of silence, in the middle of one of my meditations, a light bulb went off in my head, and I saw the words chicken soup for the woman's soul. Now, the originator of the series, Jack Canfield, was my mentor, but the only book that had come out was the original one in the series, and nobody had ever thought of any other titles in the series. Nobody had ever thought of anything beyond Chicken Soup for the Soul. And as soon as I saw those words lit up in this light bulb, like you see in the cartoons almost, I thought, that's it. That's what I'm supposed to do with my life. Now, there was only one problem with this scenario, Deanna, and that is I still had 3 more days of silence. I'd had the great
How
epiphany
did
of
you
my
do
life.
it?
I couldn't tell anybody. But as soon as the silence was over, I ran to the closest payphone and I called up Jack and I said, "Oh my God, I've got it. Chicken Soup for the Woman's Soul." He said, "I can't believe nobody's thought of it. What a great idea." And he called the publisher, who said the same thing. And a year and a half later, my first book was out and became #1 on the New York Times bestseller list that week. Now, it was only because I took that time to go into silence, to go inside, to actually free myself from all of the external output or external input, that I was able to be silent enough to hear the internal input, where I believe all great inspiration comes from. Same thing with Happy for No Reason. I went away. This time I went away for 4 days of silence because I figured the idea came to me in 4 days, I'll be more efficient. And Happy
That was
for No
your
Reason.
running average.
That's
Yes.
right. So Happy for No Reason came to me in on the fourth day of silence. And so now what I tell people is I know that you probably can't, and most people don't have the opportunity to take off 7 days. But you know what? You can take one day. You can take one day a month and take an electronics fast, meaning you fast from everything electronic. No television, no computer, no telephone, and you go into silence for one day without any of that external input. You spend the day meditating, journaling, walking in nature, grounding yourself, really being with yourself. And I promise you that simple detox, that noise, electronics, external stimuli detox, allowing you to be silent inside yourself for a day, will give you more benefit for the following month than anything else you could possibly do.
I think that's a wonderful practice if we could reserve something like that. I think just upon hearing this could create a lot of stress in people, thinking, how could I let go of the emails that are bombarding my inbox? How could I turn off my phone? You walk into restaurants, people are glued to their iPhones. So I think what you're proposing is that we get a lot of benefit, and we get more benefit from being on all that technology.
You absolutely would. We have an addiction. These electronics and just the external input it's an addiction. And we have so much extraordinary wisdom inside that if we were to, it's just a matter of shutting off that external stimuli for a day, one day a month. If you can't do one day, do a half a day. Do until 2 o'clock to start with. Just try it and spend time in nature. If you're able to, go outside barefoot somewhere where your feet are connected with the ground, with the earth. It's called earthing. And you end up recalibrating your vibration. The tempo, the pace of nature, of Mother Earth, of the intended pace of life is medium to slow. Now, most of us are living in the fast lane, and I'm guilty as well. I live in the fast lane, but I do these practices of earthing, of silence, of electronics fasting, and all these other practices, so that I can actually maintain life in the fast lane and be happy there.
I like it. And we've been hearing so much about even fasting from food, fasting from all of the junk that we might be exposed to in our food supply. So wouldn't it be a great compliment just to do it all at once and really have a dedicated day And it's not even that we're dedicating it to silence, we're dedicating it to ourselves,
Yes.
right?
That's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. So talk with us more about, when we are in that silence, I can imagine that what comes up are a lot of thoughts, kind
Right.
of that monkey mind. And so how do we go from the monkey mind of thoughts into what you experienced after day 4 of having a revelation, having an insight? How do we
Yes.
move past all of that?
So this is great what you bring up because we do have what science calls the negativity bias. What that means is that our thoughts tend to be more negative than positive. We inherited this from our cavemen ancestors who needed to remember the negatives or they would die, but we've hung on to it far too long. So what research shows is that the average person has 60,000 thoughts a day, and for the average person 80% of those are negative. And what we found is that happier people have shifted that so that more of their thoughts are positive. They've created more positive neural pathways in the brain. And there are numbers of ways to do this. The first way is to not get down on yourself for having negative thoughts because that's more negativity adding, it's adding insult to injury and to know it's normal. I mean, if let me just give you an example. If you get 10 compliments in a day and one criticism, what do you remember at the end of the day?
Of course, the criticism.
Of course.
Mhm.
Now, happier people have learned to reverse that, where they focus more on the compliment and less on the criticisms. So there are many techniques out there, and I teach a number of them in the Happy for No Reason work about how to release the negative thoughts. We don't have time to really go into those here today, but let me share with you one simple thing you can do to help create a stronger positive neural pathways, more focusing on the positive. And that is one of the people I interviewed for Happy for No Reason. She says she pretends that she is the Academy Award committee. And every day she is on the lookout for where she can give out at least 5 Academy Awards. So, for example, if she's on a walk and she sees a really adorable, cute, fluffy white dog, she in her mind goes, okay, that dog gets the Academy Award of the day for being the cutest dog. And she's just on the lookout for the good. And it's a little game she plays, and you can do this if you've got kids. It's a great game to play with your kids. It's just a matter of being on the lookout for the positive. What the research has shown is that it takes us at least 20 seconds to really register deeply the positives so that they will create changes in the brain. It takes nowhere near that amount of time for the negatives to register in the brain. It takes longer for the positives, which means we have to focus on them longer and more.
I like that. I like that a lot. So is that one of the tools that you give in the book? Are
That's
there
one of the simple that's one
Mhm.
of the simple tools that I can explain. I also teach a number of practices that I'm a huge believer in, like the Sedona method or the emotional freedom technique
Mhm.
or the work
Mhm.
of Byron Katie, many, many other great tools. My experience is that the more tools we have in our toolbox, the better off we are. So that when you're dealing with a particular stress, you can go, oh, this one today I'm going to use, EFT, or today I'm going to use the Sedona method. So it's a really good investment of our energy and time to learn a number of these tools. And I know I promised that I would give at least 3 things. I think I've already given 3, but I want to make sure that I leave you with another tool that I love and use probably more than any other tool out there that I use. Do we have time for me to
Oh,
share
we
one more?
do. Please. Yes.
Okay.
What a gift.
Well, people are often asking me, what is the fast track to happiness? And my answer is twofold. One is it depends on you. As I said earlier, wherever you're weakest is where you're going to have the greatest success fast. But the second answer is a more universal answer. And that is if I were to say the one thing that we all could do to raise our happiness set point fast, it's forgiveness.
Hmm.
The more we hang on to any kind of resentment, anger, blame, victimization, the harder it is to experience happiness.
Do you
And
find that that is the sticking point for most people? Is it
it,
really the lack of forgiveness?
it is one of the biggest sticking points,
Mhm.
definitely. And sometimes the lack of forgiveness is towards ourselves. It may not be towards somebody else, it may be an internal kind of a judgment or lack of forgiveness. And so I want to share with you a practice that I use that's very simple. And then, if I may, share a story of how it worked in my life.
We would love to hear it.
Yay. So if you've got a pen and paper, I hope that you write this down. If you don't have a pen and paper, I hope you're near a pen and paper and you grab one to write this down. This is a simple forgiveness practice called Ho'oponopono. And the good news is you don't ever have to be able to say or pronounce that word Ho'oponopono
Oh, that's a
in order
relief.
to do it. It comes from a Kahuna Hawaiian tradition. And that's why there's all those O's and P's in it. But it's actually quite simple. What you do is you repeat internally in your heart these four phrases: I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. So you think about the person or the situation with which you're having a hard time forgiving. It could even be yourself. And you don't say it out loud. You don't say it to the other person. It does not involve the other person. This is a process by which you are changing your own energy field, your own experience of energy, and that will change things on the outside.
So, Marci, these powerful phrases, do people have to have a sense of energy behind those phrases, or can they just rattle them off?
You have great questions, Deanna. I'm so really delighted to be able to have this conversation with you because you're so right on top of it all. It is best if you actually feel as much as you can what it is you're focusing on. So it's not as great to just do it rotely. Though the words themselves do carry an energetic with them, it's better to go into the feeling as best you can, not forcing anything. So what you do is you just sit for a few minutes, 5 minutes maybe, and you just imagine the person or situation and you just in your heart feel, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. Let me just, as I said, I'd love to share with you an experience that happened with me in doing this. Is that okay if we do that?
Oh, yes, please.
So, about 5 years ago, my sister and I got in an argument and we weren't talking to each other. And this was the first time in our family that we'd ever had that kind of situation. It was very uncomfortable. Well, about 4 months into this silent treatment between us, my family gathered my mom had just moved from her home of 58 years, where I grew up, to an assisted living apartment. And we gathered the morning of the move and unpacked her things in her new apartment. Well, I was so nervous about this because I hadn't seen my sister. So I came in last and I hugged and kissed everybody hello and my family, except my sister.
Hmm.
We ignored each other, didn't even look at each other. We spent the whole morning that way. It was really uncomfortable because this was a small one-bedroom apartment and I had to
Oh,
walk to the
gosh.
other side of the living room to avoid making eye contact.
Hmm.
And after a full morning of this, I was so stressed out that I decided to go to my car and take a break. And on my way to the car, I remembered Ho'oponopono. So I sat in my car and I just felt those four phrases, sent those four phrases towards her and also towards myself. I flipped back and forth a few minutes towards her, a few minutes towards myself, because I had been mad at myself as well. And I just went, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. It doesn't matter who's right or wrong. It doesn't matter any of that. This is just a deep, I'm sorry that this has happened. Please forgive me for whatever part of this I may have played knowingly or unknowingly. Thank you. I love you. So I kept repeating that internally. And after about 6 or 7 minutes, a wave of love came over me. It was like something broke through in my heart. And I felt so much love and compassion for my sister. And I realized she wasn't mad at me for what had happened 4 months earlier. It was a lifetime of stuff that I finally,
Hmm.
for the first time, understood from her point of view and felt so much compassion.
Wow.
So I went back into the apartment feeling totally different. I didn't say anything to anybody. Within 3 minutes, my sister comes over to me and takes me by the hand and says, Come on, let's go unpack mom's closet together, as
Oh,
though
my
nothing had happened. An
goodness.
hour later, we're at lunch. She hands me her baked potato and says, Here, have mine. I know you like these more than I do. And I was so shocked that I pulled my brother aside and said, Okay, what did you tell her while I was gone? And he said, Marci, nobody told her anything. We have no idea what's just happened. Well, Deanna, that was the beginning of an entirely different relationship that I now have with my sister. And it happened at the critical time because 9 months later, we found ourselves standing in that same closet of our mother's, this time packing up mom's clothes because she had just died
Mm.
unexpectedly. And I can't imagine what that would have been like if I
Yes.
had held on to that anger. And the reason I share this story is that I know that everybody listening has someone in their life that they need to forgive or let go of. And the person can even be passed on. They don't need to be alive.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so I invite you, don't take my word for it. Use your own life as an experiment and try it out for just a week or so and see what happens.
Marci, you're so right. And I can remember reading literature, scientific publications on the power of forgiveness, even in our bodies, and
Mhm.
how people with high blood pressure start to have reduced blood pressure. And so, apologies, when they're sincere, benefit not only us but the other person as well. Is my take from all of that great medical science that we have on this very potent topic.
Yes, I agree with that. And I do want to take it one step further and say, in this case, it doesn't have to be an apology said outwardly. It can be doing the work inside ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not saying that an apology outwardly, sometimes it's appropriate, sometimes it's necessary, sometimes it's, not even possible. It doesn't have to be an external apology. It's a matter of shifting our own experience of anger and resentment into a forgiveness and compassion.
Yes. Well said. Marci, you have said so many beautiful, amazing things and really shifting. Me just observing myself listening to you, it's just amazing how I feel, and I can imagine how the listeners feel as well. So, being that you're such a practical, actionable person, what would be the three takeaways that you really would like everybody to remember from this conversation? Of course, you gave us a number of different tools. What would be the magic three that we should have in our hand as we walk away from this conversation?
Okay, well, I'm going to give you the magic four.
Perfect. We'll take
I'll,
it.
I'll give you the fabulous four. How about that?
That's
Um,
great.
so, as I said, we all can raise our happiness set point, and that is just such great news. And it's just a matter of these habits. So, what I'm going to urge you to do is to pick one thing that I shared, just one thing, and try it out for the next week or two and see if it makes a difference. Problem is, most people try too many things at once. And
Yes.
so just pick one of these four that I mentioned to you. So let me review them. We did the inner ease technique, that little quick 2-minute meditation process in the very beginning where you put your hand on your heart, you breathe in and out through your heart, and you breathe in love, ease, and forgiveness and compassion. So do that 2 or 3 times a day for the next few weeks. Second practice, electronics fast and silence for a day. Or if you can't do a day, a half a day. Just try it out, see what happens.
Hmm.
The third thing we talked about was creating new positive neural pathways in the brain. Imagine that you're the Academy Awards committee and you're on the lookout every day for 5 things that you can give an Academy Award to, 5 things that you appreciate around you, and you focus on those for at least 20 seconds to create new positive neural pathways. And then the fourth thing was forgiveness and using this whole Pono practice. I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. Just doing one of those 4 things every day for the next week or two, I guarantee you will experience some kind of shift in your life.
And sometimes that's all it takes is just one little thing and it creates that ripple effect.
Mhm.
So, this is a great list for us to choose from. Thank you. Are there any final thoughts that you have for us as we close?
Yes. Well, first of all, I'm offering to you as a gift on my website, www.happyfornoreason.com. I have a Happy for No Reason 28-page workbook that includes all of these exercises in it, my 21 habits and an exercise or practice for each of those habits, along with that Happy for No Reason questionnaire assessment so you can see where you're the weakest and start there. So that's at www.happyfornoreason.com. And I really invite you to that. And the last thought I would love to leave you with has to do with a question that I'm asked very often. And that is, isn't this selfish?
Hmm.
Why are we focusing just on our own happiness? What about the rest of the world? And my answer to that is that being happy, raising your happiness set point is the least selfish thing that you can do. because when you're happier, you affect all of the people around you. That has an effect on the entire community and ultimately on the whole world. And so I will leave you with this Chinese proverb that sums up this philosophy and really why I'm here today. And I believe why you're here ultimately. I think it's not an accident that you were called to this conversation. I believe that there's something, your soul called you here today because there was something in here for you to hear. And so let me leave you with this Chinese proverb that goes like this. It says, when there is light in the soul, there will be beauty in the person. When there is beauty in the person, there will be harmony in the house. When there is harmony in the house, there will be order in the nation. And when there is order in the nation, there will be peace in the world. Mm. And my prayer and my wish for you, for all of us that are listening, that we experience that light in our souls, that we experience that happiness in our hearts, that aliveness and vitality in our bodies. And through that, we help create more peace here on this planet of ours.
So beautiful, Marci. Yes, and through this detox summit, really creating that change within, as you're suggesting, and by changing us, we change the planet. So thank you for allowing us to zoom into the microcosm of who we are in order to see that we are all connected to this great, big, magnificent macrocosm. So everybody, don't forget, Marci's website is www.happyfornoreason.com. Check out the questionnaire. Check out her books, please. This is really life-shifting stuff. This is the activities that she has, the message that she brings forth is high integrity, it's authentic, and it's going to change you. So thank you, Marci, for being a part of this movement to not only get ourselves clean and detoxified, but our planet to a different resonance and frequency.
Thank you, Deanna, for doing this. It's a really great service. And thank you, everyone who's listening, because I absolutely know that your being here and you're participating in this is making a difference in your life and a difference on this planet. So I'm blessed. I feel very, very blessed and fortunate to get to be with you all.